Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. This story about what if Naruto was son of Uchiha Madara. Subscribe to my channel and let's start, bro.
Madoka Uchiha was one of the most powerful shinobi in the world, having been considered the rival of Hashirama Senju in her prime years. It was no wonder that she never had time for the thought of starting a family, considering that she had more important things to do. But, as time went on, and her Sharingan kept her young and graceful, she had begun to entertain the thought of a family. Certainly she would be an excellent mother, as S. Read several books about child rearing and development, as well as the fact that she was superior to everyone in all ways. What made her pause was who the father would. She was picky about the men she took to bed, always choosing only the strongest, smartest, and best to even catch a glimpse of her wonderful body. But, those picking W. Getting smaller every day. No one I had met in the past few years was worthy of even taking a single look at her gorgeous body, and even fewer had what I takes to keep you. Her dominating nature. So it came as no surprise to her that she had immediately looked at the two Senju brothers, Hashirama and Tobarama. She weighed the pros and cons of each one. Hashira was powerful and smart, but he was also supremely loyal to his wife, Mito Uzumaki, the Kyuubi container. Tobarama, on the other hand, had looked at her in lust before. Not only that, but he was powerful. Not as powerful as Hashirama, but powerful all the same. Therefore, her prime candidate for impregnating her. That night, she was pleasantly surprised to find that the white-haired man had been drinking, making the seduction go that much easier. She had entered his office, wearing traditional kimono, and sat down. They had talked, and drank, and pretty soon, he was drunk enough. There was no romance, no kissing or feelings, just a carnal desire for the pleasures of the body. Drunk while keeping her mind sharp and clear, she had him ejaculate several times within her, ensuring that the fertility drugs she had taken made 100% sure that she was pregnant. After several weeks of waiting, she got her answer. She had hidden from the Uchiha clan her plans, as they would no doubt try and control the child in an attempt to counter village. She had no intention of allowing that, so she hid herself away and eagerly waited for her pregnancy test to finish. It was positive. After the great news, Madoka went about preparing to leave the village, having determined that it would not be a great place for her to raise a child, especially when said C would no doubt have a resemblance to the Nadaime Hokage. Questions would be asked, questions that she would be unable to answer without giving away her plan, and the entire village, giving the village council a reason to kill her. She had packed everything she would need, weapons, scrolls, food, and even all of the baby items that her newborn would need. These items included a crib, several bland pillows, clothes, and some items that weren't necessary, things such as toys and stuffed animals. She put all of these in scrolls, but had a nagging feeling that she was forg something. She went over her mental checklist and had no idea what she was forgetting. Deciding to ask Mito, who had recently given birth to a son, she made her way to the Senju compound. She talked at length with Mito, confident that the Shodaime's wife had no idea of her condition. What she had, apparently, forgotten was diapers. Now that she had rectified her mistake, Madoka took one last look at the village that she had helped found, a small, sad smile on her face that things had to turn out like tea. Doubt that Hashirama had discovered her actions, and was searching for her alongside Tobarama. Time was of the essence here, and if she messed up once, she wouldn't be only one suffering. And as Madoka Uchiha, the strongest Uchiha in history, she couldn't allow herself to let them harm her child, whether it was born or unborn. She needed a place to stay secure, all the while protected from any of her enemies. She needed a place to put the seals that she had been studying that would keep a single place out of the natural steam flow for an extended period of time. And so, she decided to head to the land of water. With all of her items sealed away, she glanced back once, her Sharingan active, and leapt into the trees to begin her plans for the future. 1 week later, Madoka arrived at a small island off the coast of the land of water, the perfect spot for her to set up a home for the moment. Using the DNA of Hashirama she had extract. During their past fights, she grew a 2-story house, complete with wooden furniture. She then set to work on the seals for the island, putting them at key sectors around the small island. She made 100% sure that everything was perfect. The seals would place hidden from the outside world for up to 60 years, the perfect amount of time for her to get all of her plans started, and for her to ensure that her child would be Yunana, as the seals would make it seem like only 5 years had passed. She unloaded all of her supplies, books, weapons, and child care objects and sat in a comfortable recliner, rubbing her stomach with a soft smile. 2 years in the Seal 24 after Madoka left. Madoka smiled at the black-haired baby boy she held in her arms. She had given birth to him 2 years ago and had come to a very clear conclusion: she needed help. Books had prepared her for having the child and getting things ready, but she needed to go out to Kurigakure and set her plans in motion. To do that, she needed to leave her son, whom she had named Naruto after the maelstroms that periodically surrounded the island. But therein lies the problem: who will watch over Naruto? It wasn't like she could just go out and kidnap someone to do it. She paused at that thought and stood, placing Naruto in his crib. She walked outside, her maternity dress whipping in the wind. She had very carefully kept an eye on all that happened in the years she had been missing. She had observed the First Shinobi World War, and had been observing the second going on. She had noticed that the fighting taken place in the Land of Rain, and that 3 children had caught her attention. They had been trained by Jiraiya the Toad Summoner, and in time, they would be excellent caretakers for her son. A rustle beside her caught her attention and she said, "Z, what have you got to report?" A man slowly appeared from the ground, one half of him white, the other black, with what looked like a plant growing out of his sides. He was Zetsu, an experiment with Hashirama's bloodline from Kusagakure. For the record, I will not be dividing Zetsu's words between black and white. Madoka-sama, those 3 AIM orphans have become strong, almost strong enough to watch over Naruto-kun. Do you wish me to go and retrieve them? Madoka thought it over and shook her head. She would get someone less likely to betray her. No. But I need you to go to Kurigakure and find a pediatrician, preferably a female. Then alert me. With his orders, Zetsu sank into the ground. Kurigakure. Hitomi was in her office when the door opened and an attractive black-haired woman walked in, wearing an expensive-looking white kimono. For a single moment, Hitomi her in the eyes, and everything went black. The island, now named Maelstrom Island. When she awoke, Hitomi was in what she assumed was a nursery, the same woman from before sitting in a rocking chair, reading a story to a child no older than 2. Hito, strapped to a chair opposite her, and when the woman put the child down in his crib, she turned to her captive. "My name is Madoka Uchiha. I have commandeered your to look after my son while I take care of some business I have. If you refuse, I will be forced to terminate you. If you accept, you will be living here for the next year, when will be sent back, with no memory of what transpired. Do you understand and accept?" Hitomi didn't hesitate. Yes. The woman, Madoka, nodded and untied her, all the while explaining the rules of the house, as well as the rules about Naruto. 1 year later, 36 years after Madoka left. True to her word, Madoka let Hitomi leave after 1 year, when Naruto turned 3, and she had set up a more permanent caretakers, or takers in this instance. The AIM orphans would have died at the hands of Hanzo the Salamander if it hadn't have been for the Uchiha's intervention, and as such, they were more than willing to look after the. As she led them to the house, the sound of little feet running caught their attention as a black and white blur ran into Madoka. Upon closer inspection, it revealed to be an Naruto. His hair had started to lighten, taking on a white coloring, and he had intelligent dark eyes. He wore a black t-shirt and pants, and was barefoot. He had a smile on face as he nuzzled with his mother. Ka-chan. Madoka gave a motherly smile at the child she had birthed as she held him in her arms. Naru-chan, where are your shoes? The small child made a face at the word shoes. Yuck. Oh's bad. The AIM orphans all looked at the scene, small smiles on their faces as they were led to a nice-looking house. Madoka turned to them, setting Naruto down as he went to with Uncle Zetsu, in the backyard training ground. As you can see, that was Naruto, the child you will be looking after. Everything you need is here, as well as enough RO. All of you. Feel free to train, but be conscious that Naruto also needs to be trained as well, something I require you to do. Also, This island is special. There are seals on it. 1 year here is 12 off of the island. In 1.5 years island time, Naruto will emerge and be sent to AIM, where the three of you will be leaders. There he will trained until he is an appropriate age and becomes a junior member of a group I will start, the Akatsuki. 1 year later, 48 years later, outside of the seal, Madara watched as her newest follower, partner, healed in a bed on Maelstrom Island, having finally convinced him of her plan after he witnessed the death of his friend, R. All her pieces were falling into place, and now she just had to wait for Naruto to be 5, when he could safely set foot into the world. And when he did, Kami helped the elemental nations. A group of 4 individuals was headed to the land of waves on a mission, 2 of them annoyed beyond all comprehension, while the other 2 were arguing. A little ways, 2 other individuals were walking as well, one amused, the other just as annoyed, if not even more so, than the first 2. Ramen. Dango. Ramen. Dango. Ramen. Dango. It was a normal day for the group as the sensei and student pair fought. Well, as normal as it could be for them. The first of the group of 6 was a rather tall teen with Florida orange hair and eyes, wearing a pair of simple tan shorts and a shirt of the same color, choosing to go barefoot instead of shoes. He had a light brown cloak around himself, covering him as he walked. On his forehead was a shinobi headband, with the symbol for the village of Omegakure on it as 4 vertical lines. The second figure was an irate redhead who wore glasses over her red, twitching eyes. She had a long-sleeved purple top on, that left her bellybutton and stomach exposed. Black shorts, black tights that went up to her thigh, and brown shinobi sandals. Her headband was wrapped around her upper forearm. The taller of the 2 figures that was following the group of 4 had blue skin, darker blue hair, beady, shark-like eyes, a grin that revealed rows of sharpened teeth, and a strap to his back. He wore a black cloak with red clouds on it. The smaller of the 2 had long, raven black hair that was held in a low ponytail, dark eyes that had deep tear troughs, and an emotionless face that rivaled stone. He wore same uniform as his taller companion. The 5th, and the sensei of the group of 4, was a tall man with short, spiky black hair that was cropped close to his head. Nothing could be seen of his face because of the orange mask that had a spiral starting from the one eye hole over his left eye. He had on a long-sleeved shirt that had layered armor along the arms, tucked into black white leg warmers over black shinobi sandals. Around his neck was a deep green scarf that flapped in the breeze, his forehead protector sewn into the material. The final member had hair that was a mix of dark, midnight black, and a white so pure as to be compared to the first snow of winter, covered by a helmet mask that wrapped around his head, save for the back, leaving a long headband to flap in the light breeze, the actual forehead protector identification mark on the forehead of his mask. His M was white, with 4 centric circles that had 9 commas in them, with 2 eye holes that revealed crimson orbs that looked almost black, that would occasionally shift to blood red filled with 3 commas. He had on a white, form-fitting shirt, black pants and gloves, underneath a purple, long-sleeved, high-collar mantle that split down the half, with his personal crest on the back. Around his waist he wore a simple, light purple obi and a belt, with black shinobi sandals. Strapped to his back, he carried a purple gunbai with black trimmings and black tomoe, connected to a chain that ran up his right sleeve. At underneath the lower half of his gunbai was a katana that went horizon, hilt protruding out so as for easy reach. The sword itself was rather simple. It had a purple cloth wrapped around the hilt, with a 5-pointed star as a guard. The sheath dark brown that seemed to be made of chestnut wood. The blade was tempered iron, infused with his will and soul to be unbreakable, a single black, wave-like line going D. The center. A massive scroll, colored a murky green with black outlines on it, hung underneath the sword, rolled up neatly. His crest was of a crossed-out smiley face, that had 10 magmata circling it. Behind the smiley face was the Uchiha fan, colored in opposite colors as the original. These people, in order of appearance, were Jugo, Karen Uzumaki, Kisame Hoshigaki, Itachi Uchiha, Obito Uchiha An, disguised as Tobi, who will be referred to as such unt. Decide when, and Naruto Uchiha. Naruto, Jugo, and Karen made Team 0 of Omegakure, a team of special genin, led by Tobi. Chewbacca. Kisame and Itachi were both members of the Amekkage elite guardas, the Akatsuki. They were heading to Wave Country on a B-ranked mission to, well, the genin really didn't know. They were just told to prepare for up to a month of travel. Naruto, have gotten tired of the argument, decided to ask. Nay, sensei, why are we here? You never told us what we were be doing in Wave. The 13-year-old asked. It seemed his teammates were curious too, seeing as they looked at the masked man too. Toby nodded enthusiastically as he said in a chipper voice. We're here to do a B-ranked mission assigned to us by Amekkage-sama, submitted to the village by an unknown contact who said to meet him at Pier 7 for his name and the first half of the mission pay, which is. Here his mask turned slightly, giving them a full view of his Sharingan. Kill the bridge builder Tazuna before he can complete the bridge. Later down the road, just entering the village of Wave. Naruto looked around at the village of Wave with indifference as they made their way through it. While he did admit that this place was depressing, he couldn't, and would anything to stop it. He couldn't because it wasn't his mission to save these people. And while it sickened him to see so many girls older, his age, or younger than him doing anything to be given money, and seeing so many homeless people here, either dead or dying via starvation, it was all their fault. They had the choice of allowing the reason for their economic depression to enter their lands, and they were the reason he believed what he believed. A person is only worth much as they are willing to give to grow and become strong. These people, these pieces of trash, were sitting, all hope of a better life gone, waiting for someone, whether they're Diamo samurai, or shinobi from another land, to save them. It was a cynical, cruel, and harsh belief, but it was the truth. Suddenly, he felt a hand reach into the kunai pouch situated on his back right pocket, next to his other kunai, and he twisted around to see who had made the suicidal move to steal from him. He looked into the eyes of a small girl, probably no older than 5 or 6, as she gave him heart-melting look of hope. Naruto looked back, having an internal struggle with himself, before he sighed and grabbed one of his kunai. Handing it to the girl, who looked at in shock and curiosity, he said in an emotionless voice. Use this knife, use it well, and survive on your own strength. Learn to use it, master it, and you can eat as much as want. She gave a grateful nod and ran away, clutching the knife to her chest as she did. Naruto turned back around and caught up to his team, who had stopped to watch. Kanten. On the walk to the piers, Naruto turned to Kisame as he started to talk. Why did you give that brat a kunai? Why not some of your rations? His reply was this. She didn't need the food. She needed a way to get it. Pier 7 Land of Waves. They had arrived at the meeting place to see a short man with a perm-like haircut accompanied by 2 wannabe samurai, and 2 obvious shinobi. The taller, and male, of the 2 had short, spiky black hair and black eyes, his face covered in bandages. He had no shirt on, instead wearing arm warmers that looked like hide, and pin-striped pants. On his back was a large, cleaver-like sword that had a slightly curved edge, with a hole near the end, a half-hole midway through, and a quart at the handle. His companion was wearing a battle robe-like kimono, with a pair of wooden sandals. Despite obvious attempts to hide it, she was without a doubt female, and had a nicely chest. Her face was covered by a Kurigakure hunter nin mask. The sword-carrying man looked at them in confusion, before he saw Kisame. Shit. He swore. Kisame, what the fuck are you doing here? The short man spoke up first. Zabuza, I've taken the liberty of hiring you some additional help, hence these AIM shinobi. They have the same mission as you do, so don't. But I only asked for 4 people. What gives? Kisame answered him. We're just looking for a boat to Lightning Country, so no worries. Toby walked forward, his voice still childish, yet more serious. Speaking of the mission, we need our pay, and information on our target. The man, Gato, nodded and gestured to a suitcase near them. The money is there. As for the target, his name is Tazuna, he's about 50 years old, has a daughter and a grandson. He lives on the outskirts of the town. From what my sources were able to gather, he has a single team of Konoha shinobi protecting him. Now, I don't care how I don't care how soon he dies so long as the bridge isn't finished, but if you fail, so help me'll. You'll what? Naruto asked, stepping forward, towards Gato, putting the man and his bodyguards on edge. If you haven't noticed, we're shinobi. You can't exactly do mu against us. Besides, you have a Megakure Gen and Team Zero as your hired assassins. Yeah, I see you know who we are. We don't fail. The bridge builder will die, so don't worry. If you have to rely on 8 shinobi to do what your shitty army of thugs can't, we at least deserve to be treated seriously. The two aforementioned thugs growled at being talked about like that, while Gato scowled at Naruto. Seeing that the meeting was over with, he marched away as fast as midget legs could carry him. Toby looked at Zabuza and spoke. Since you were here first, you get the first crack at Tazuna. Zabuza looked at him before he shrugged. I don't care. But if you're offering, then so be it. The next day, Naruto looked out the window of the building that he and his teammates and seniors were staying at alongside Zabuza and the girl, who he found out was named Haku. Demon of the Mist had returned not long ago, wounded pretty badly, and the young Uchiha found it amusing. He had read and heard stories about shinobi of all kinds, of the battles won and fought, of great leaders and men who had no fear in the face of the Shinigami. Hell, his spoke often of Hashirama Senju and his brother, Naruto's long-dead father, Tobirama, how they were some of the most powerful shinobi ever. Naruto had known for a while exactly who his father was, and honestly he could see that while his mother didn't love the man, she respected him, leading for Naruto to res him also. He was also a contributor to Naruto's incredibly high water affinity, his shadow clone technique, and his near mastery of the perfect Edo Tensei. The perfect Edo Tensei was not like Orochimaru's, which required a sacrifice, but still required the DNA of the person you were resurrecting. What it was an incredibly complicated seal that was like summoning. By sacrificing a bit of blood, he was able to summon the people he had collected for the Edo Tensei. But, due to not requiring a sacrifice, it cost a fairly large amount of chakra to use, about equal to summoning the boss of a summoning clan twice in a row. So far, Naruto was able to summon from the dead Hanzo the Salamander, with whom he managed to sing the Salamander contract from, the third Raikage, the second Tsuchikage, the second Mizukage, the second Hokage, his father, 3 members of the 7 Swordsmen of the Mist, Kabul, the first Jinchuriki of the Hachibi, Mizupa, second Jinchuriki of the Sanbi, and finally Tanto, the first Jinchuriki of the Gobi. His mother was able to summon all of them, plus the first Hokage, along with all of the other Kage of the past, and Makarov Dreyar, the first, and last, Kusakage, Somethi Naruto was jealous of. Tired of just waiting, Naruto opened the window of his room and jumped out, leaping from tree to tree on his way to Tazuna's house to do reconnaissance. He was 3 foof the way there when he saw her. She had golden hair as if it had been kissed by the sun that was tied in 2 ponytails on either side of her head by 2 light purple ribbons, with a gentle, heart-shaped facade of voluptuous form for her age, with D-cup breasts. She wore an orange kimono top that had black bits on it that was held closed by a black obi, the Uzumaki spiral on back, opened slightly to reveal a black shirt underneath. She wore a thigh-length, orange skirt that was tight around her plump ass, accenting it nicely, and calf-length shinob with open toes that were black as well, and thigh-length tights that showed off her shapely legs. Her eyes, a brilliant cobalt, were bloodshot and puffy, as if she had been on her cheek was a large, purple bruise that seemed to throb in pain. But what really caught his attention was the Konoha headband on her forehead, the cloth long like HWAS still tied to his head, only his didn't have any identification marks. Naruto stopped, suppressed his chakra, and hid behind the tree whose branch he was standing on. Naruto cursed himself for stopping near a potential enemy, his mind racing as he processed what he had seen, taking stock of the fact he had left his gunbai, sword, and summoning scroll, along with his normal uniform, back at the hideout. He heard a sniffle and could smell with his enhanced senses as a salty tear fell, and cursed himself feeling compelled to see what had caused her to be this way. Before he knew it, he was moving to comfort her, taking his mask off and sealing it onto one of the seals hidden on his gloves. Kasumi's point of view, Kasumi Uzumaki Namikaze was crying. She had never cried before, so it was surprising that she had started now. After all, she was the princess of Konoha. Her father, the Yondaime Hokage Minato Namikaze, and her mother, Kushina Uzumaki, were two of the most powerful shinobi ever produced by the village hidden in the leaves, and as SSHE was treated with respect, despite her Jinchuriki status. But, life was not always as it seemed. And while the family, at least on the outside, seemed happy and content, the ugly truth was that they were anything but happy. Her father, Minato, was abusive towards her and her mother, treating them like trash and hitting them. When he came home from work, he liked to drink sake, a lot of sake. Would always wind up getting drunk. And when he was drunk, he got abusive. He would hit and beat Kushina, and occasionally rape her in front of Kasumi, all the while gr madly. And at night, Minato would go into Kasumi's room and stare at her for a long time while drinking, occasionally jacking off next to her bed. Not to mention he bought very revealing and inappropriate clothing to wear. But the one time she truly wanted to forget, was when he had come into her room, masturbated, and cummed all over H before proceeding to molest her most sacred place. He had not penetrated her, but it still left her feeling horrible and dirty. Her mother, Kushina, treated Kasumi like a monster, refusing to give her food at times, and denying her entrance into the house for a good portion of the day. And when were alone, she would yell and scream at her, calling her a slut and a whore. She would force her to strip naked and pleasure the redhead, before being roughly pleasured as well. But the worst part was when her mother, though she can barely be called that, went out into the village under a henge, and came back with a large, black strap on. And then proceeded to rape Kasumi in her anus, all the while yelling at her for seducing Minato away from her. The only reprieve she got was when she went to the academy, to the training fields, or with her godparents, who knew nothing of the abuse and were like actual parents as well as to her favorite place in the village, the library. But when she was placed on her team, all chances of the freedom from the abuse were obliterated. She was placed on a new, experimental, team that had 2 Jonin Instru, instead of the usual 1 and 4 additional teammates aside from her. And lo and behold, her mother was one of them, while the other was Kakashi Hatake, one of the people who wanted in her pants. He had hit on her, given her both blunt and clouded compliments, and was insistent on physically touching her to teach her taijutsu. Her teammates were no different in the abuse, aside from her best friends Satsuki and Rock Lee. Her teammates were Satsuki Uchiha, Rock Lee, Kiba Inuzuka, Hinata Hyu, and Sakura Haruno. Hinata and Sakura were both bitches who acted like they owned the world, and were complete sluts. Even back in the academy they were both caught. Head to the Chunin instructors for better grades. They took every opportunity to insult and degrade Kasumi and Satsuki, making her dread the time spent with her team more. Kiba had tried to get her to have sex with him several times in the past, even attempting to rape her, which would have succeeded if it wasn't for the intervention of Lee at the last moment. The Inuzuka had been arrested for a time when he was caught brutally raping Ino Yamanaka in the boys' restroom at the academy, being released. Order of Sume Inuzuka when she fucked Fugaku to get her precious baby boy out of the Uchiha jail. She was shaken from her thoughts by the sound of footsteps. Looking up, she saw a boy about a year older than her with white and black hair, a strong face with a chiseled, very dark, almost black, red eyes. Over his right eye was an X-shaped scar. The 2 legs of it were longer than the arms, going all the way down his cheek. His face was distinct, with what appeared to be both a rugged grace, yet a subtle elegance to it. He was wearing a pair of black pants and a long-sleeved blue shirt, with black shinobi S on his feet. When he spoke, it sounded as if water was spilling out onto rocks with a smooth baritone to it. I overheard you crying. Are you okay? The stranger asked in what seemed to be concern. Now, Kasumi wasn't like her mother or father. She wasn't loud or obnoxious, or one of those, get right into your face, kind of girls. She was quiet, thoughtful, and preferred diplomacy to violence any day. But, seeing this handsome boy appear out of nowhere, like an angel sent by Kami, she seemed to shrink into herself even more, worried might not be an angel, but a devil in disguise. I'm fine. Really? I am. She stuttered out. The boy frowned and looked at her with piercing eyes, as if seeing into her soul. He shifted his attention to her face, more specifically the purple bruise. His eyes softened as he slowly, carefully, approached her. Sitting on his knees, he went through several hand signs before his right hand was in a lime green light. Pressing his hand to her cheek, he concentrated as he focused on the bruise, making it gradually disappear. The jutsu he was using was called the Mai Palm Jutsu, a rather simple medical ninjutsu used to stop bleeding and heal flesh wounds in combat situations. Kasumi immediately felt relief from the pain as he healed her cheek with his jutsu, which brought about a range of questions. Who was he? Why was he here? Was he a shish? Was he Zabuza's ally? Was he the hunter nin from before? As she was about to ask these questions, the boy spoke in a soft tone. My name is Naruto. Can you tell me what yours is? Or do you want a nickname? She almost screamed her name out, but refrained and spoke as calmly as she could. Anyo. My name is Kasumi, Naruto-san. May I ask where you learned this technique fr? A scroll. But to be more precise, my aunt gave me a scroll on medical ninjutsu and its applications for my birthday around 4 years ago. The stranger, now named Naru, explained. He was hesitant to tell this girl, now named Kasumi, anything, but chose to follow one of the teachings he had learned from Itachi, lie by telling the truth. It was simple really. All you had to do was make a vague picture, and people would fill in the facts for themselves, making assumptions that were, nearly 100% of time, incorrect. Kasumi gave a small smile as she felt his hand leave her face, making her feel somewhat cold by the loss of his hand. That's pretty cool. Was she a shinobi? That was an easy one for him. Yeah, she and her husband were. But, after a time, they just got sick of the never-ending killing and retired. Now I have 2 cousins, an entire closet full of scrolls and techniques from them. That was both a lie and the truth. The truth was he had way more than just a closet full. He had to use seals to build extended doorway and a massive library connected to that doorway just to keep all of the fighting styles, ninjutsu, genjutsu, taijutsu, elemental manipulation, kekkei jutsu fuinjutsu organized and in one place. Not to mention all the books. All sorts of books. Ranging from kids' books to epics. From medical journals to recipes. They talked. Well, more like Kasumi did. Naruto listened mostly. She told him of her abuse, for some reason trusting him, and about her life in the cruel Namikaze home. Was angry as he listened to it, and was devising a plan to save this girl, who had miraculously appeared in his life, and he seemed to just trust her. After a time, it was late, so they prepared to leave. Naruto stood alongside Kasumi to his height of 5 feet 6 inches, while she stood at 4 feet 10 inches. Her head came to a stop right at his upper chest, and she craned her head to look him in the. She gave him a dazzling smile while his lips quirked a bit. She was thinking of ways to repay him for healing her when she got an idea. Tazuna's daughter, Tsunami, was a woman. Maybe she could fix him some dinner, or something. The blonde girl grabbed his hand and pulled him in the direction of Tazuna's house. I just thought of a way to thank you, Naruto-kun. Come on. She didn't notice, or care, about the change of suffix used by her. Naruto did and quirked an eyebrow before his eyes widened and he made a smokeless shadow clone. He gave it a mental order to report to Toby, before he was dragged away. He didn't fight back for several reasons. 1 was that she seemed depressed, 2 was that her had screamed for help, 3 was that she was too cute to say no to, and the final one was he got to watch as her hips swayed back and forth as she walked, doing one. Her toned ass. They arrived at the house in a little under an hour, and Kasumi already knew that things were going to be complicated. For there, standing with a scowl on her face, was he. Mother, Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze. The redhead was attractive enough, and had violet eyes, but in her eyes was a deep hate and anger that made her outward appearance ugly. Her red hair was long, reachy waist, and she wore a simple Konoha Jonin uniform that accented her depressingly small C-cup breasts. The woman glared at Kasumi and spoke in a harsh tone. Kasumi, where have you been? You've been gone for nearly 3 hours. Naruto raised an eyebrow in his head at that. She had been crying for 2 hours in the woods before he found her. Interesting. The girl looked down and to the side, before she saw Naruto's foot, reminding her of his presence. Oh, Ka-san, this is Naruto. I found him in the woods and we talked healed my ankle after I twisted it. To thank him, I was going to ask Tsunami-san to cook him a meal. Kushina directed her look to Naruto before her eyes softened at his handsome face. Her eyes filled with lust as she looked at his form, while Naruto shuddered inwardly at hungry look. After a moment, she nodded and gestured for them to follow her inside. It was a decent home, Naruto mused, in that it was better than the other shitholes that he had seen in the village. He followed Kasumi and Kushina, the latter of whom ret into her shell, as they walked into a dining area. He, naturally, garnered some curious looks before the entire story, bereft of key parts, was explained. The woman, Tsunami, was kind enough to cook him a nice meal with what she had, and was a gracious host. It was during the meal that Naruto felt the eyes of everyone. Looking up, he was met with a mixture of hostile Sakura, Inari, Hinata, and Kiba curious Satsuki, Kasumi, Lee, Tsunami, Tazuna, and Kakashi and lustful Kushina. Lu gave them all a small smile and Kasumi beamed at him, getting glared at by Kushina, who went back to undressing Naruto with her eyes. So, Naruto-kun, what brings yo wave country? Kakashi asked in a curious voice. The young, hidden, Uchiha simply smiled and said, well, I have family who lived here, and it's been a while since I've seen them, so I decided to make the pilgrimage. But, seeing the economic state of the country, and the fact that my cousins were reported having died some time ago, I've been enjoying the forests. It was a carefully crafted lie, capable of being expanded and explained while not being too complicated, but more importantly, it seemed to sat Kakashi, as he went back to eating, but not before sending Kasumi a hungry look. Dinner went on for a while, with talk soon going to the plans for the bridge protection, and all was nice before Inari slammed his hands onto the table. Why do even both? Trying. You can't beat Gato. He's invincible. No one can beat him. Not even you. All was silent until Naruto spoke. Oh, he's invincible you say? How so? Inari was grasping at straws for a moment. He has so much money, and so many goons he just is. Naruto nodded to himself before asking again. How many thugs does he have? 100. And what is the total population of Wave Country? I don't know. In the recent census by what was left of the government of this country, the population is somewhere between 5 to 6,000 people. Each one with 2 arms, kappa. Picking up a tool or something and using it as a weapon. And you have the gall to tell me that Gato is invincible? Foolish boy. Inari glared hatefully at Naruto. And what would you know of our suffering? Naruto looked at Inari emotionlessly before a sudden oppressive feel entered the room. It wasn't like a blast of killing intent, no, it was much more subtle, more cold. It cr. into the gathered people's bodies and gripped their very souls. It was as if the Shinigami itself had entered the room. I was blessed to have a mother who loved me. Naruto began. I was blessed to be born her son. I was blessed to have a family, who despite everything that had happened, them, stuck by each other. But, each one of them has had a harder life than you ever would. Naruto took a breath before he began. One of my brothers had to flee his home after he was framed for blowing up the central government building of his village, another because he wished to make his art his way. I had an uncle who was betrayed by closest friends, and forced to kill several of his elders to escape and survive, and another who was forced into a horrible ritual that destroyed his mind. I have an aunt that almost killed alongside her husband and brother for being shinobi before they retired, if only because they were shinobi. I have a brother who was regarded as a freak for appearance, and was run out of his home because he loved it so much, he killed several traitors. I have a brother who was framed for the murder of a very respected perso, who can never see his family again. So, no, Inari, I don't know what it means to suffer as you do, but I sure as hell know that there are many, many, many people on the L rank higher than you in terms of pain. The dual-colored haired boy stood then, turned, but not before stopping. This world is horrible, it kills people who honestly don't deserve to die. But, if my family can stand up and keep moving forward, towards a new dawn, a new day, then I know you can too, Inari. Naruto stepped outside, closing the door and utilizing a quick body flicker to teleport himself back to the hideout. Kasumi ran to the door and opened it, only to be greeted by a light gust of wind, not seeing Naruto anywhere in sight. The hideout. Naruto walked into the room that was designated as his, and sat in a nearby chair. He nearly jumped when Zabuza's partner stepped out of the shadows. We got your shadow clone. It was dangerous for you to jeopardize the mission like that. The gentle girl said softly, but in a deadly voice. Naruto scoffed at her, before glaring. She was a girl, crying, in the woods, alone. What did you want me to do? Ignore her and have her potentially be raped by Gato's thug may have no problem working for the man, but even I have Morla's. And when this mission is over, I am going to relish as I rip the midget's head off. Haku frowned and said, You seem attached to the girl. Glaring harder, the Uchiha said with a growl. So what if I do? She was kind, undeserving of the obvious cruel treatment of her mother and team. Are you saying that you have me just kill her then and there? Like a dog that needed to be put down. Haku was glaring at him now. I know all about suffering. But the mission. Fuck the mission. Can't you see that there is more than one option here? Our team consists of high-class shinobi, all of whom can easily kill the bandits and thugs Gato H. If we were to storm his estate, kill him, take the money he was going to pay us, then give the rest back to Wave, we wouldn't need to kill the bridge builder. The two glared at each other before Haku turned to leave. That may be what you and your team will do, but Zabuza-sama and I will kill the bridge builder, and if you ge way, then the girl will die as well. Haku went for the door handle, but stopped when she felt the intense ki directed at her. Looking at Naruto, she gulped at the expression on his face, or lack thereof. He was devoid of any emotion, completely blank as he made his way slowly to her. When he reached the frozen girl, he whispered to her, If a single hair on her head is harmed, for reason, I will personally kill Zabuza, before I make you drown in his blood. The next day with Team 7, at the bridge, Team 7N and Tazuna saw the mist on the bridge, and immediately prepared for combat. And by prepare, that meant that Kasumi, Satsuki, and Rock Lee got into fighting while Kiba, Hinata, and Sakura shrank back. Kakashi and Kushina both tried to pierce the mist, but stopped when they heard Zabuza chuckle. The mist cleared to show the man, his accomplice, and 4 others standing there. The group tensed immediately. Oh Kakashi, how cute that your genin tried to be so brave. Let me ask you something, can you see my future now? Cut the shit, Zabuza. The time for talking is over. Now, all we want is to kill the bridge builder, and be on our way. Nothing more, nothing less. So please, hand him over. Spoke, his mask muffling his voice enough to hide who he was. Haku glared at him as he stepped forward. Kasumi glared at him and said in a voice that hid her fear. No, we're shinobi from Konoha. We never surrender, and we never fa. Naruto looked at her for a moment, and said. How idealistic of you. Never surrender. Never fail. Foolish words that show just how arrogant you of Konoha really are. H. reached for a sack that was laying near him. Opening it, he reached inside and said. By the way, I met that guy that you talked with yesterday. He threw the object at their feet, and they were horrified to see the severed head of Naruto, which was really a ball with a henge seal on it. Kasumi was wide-eyed as Sheila. Scream, filled with anger and sorrow. She glared at Naruto and asked. Quote. Who are you? Who are you to do this to such a kind person? Naruto paused, and thought up something on the spot. My name is Madara. From now until I say otherwise, Naruto is called Madara. Kasumi glared at Madara, even as the battles began. She went through a few hand seals and took a breath. Wind style. Drilling air bullet. A ball of pressurized air escaped her lips as it tore across the bridge, only for Madara to phase out of existence, appearing with his fist cocked back directly in front of Kasu punched her in the stomach, before following up with a roundhouse kick. She ducked and lashed out with a sweeping leg that he jumped over, before he went through a say. Hand seals. Stopping in the ram sign, he said. Water style. Water implosion. From the surrounding air, a massive ball of water appeared and flew at Kasumi. He used her wind chakra to cut it in half, only to dodge a strike from Madara's gunbai that would have taken her head. But, she missed the leg that came from nowhere, and was caught off guard as he gave her a brutal beat down using taijutsu. He was using a style that his father used as was the flowing strike bite, and it focused on getting around an opponent's guard and dealing heavy damage to their abdomen. Neither cared about the fights going on around them as they fought, both using their respective elements. Neither cared as a dome of ice mirrors appeared, or the sound of chirping birds. Neither cared for the sound of talking as they fought. Backing off for a second's rest, Madara was instantly tense when red chakra came from the blonde girl, and going through hand seals, Naruto used one of his original jutsu. Water style. Explosive bite of the water dragon. Kasumi was hit by the medium-sized wave of water that turned into a whirlpool, which swirled around, launching projectiles of water at her that hit her, spinning her around. She fell. The water that had been launched turned into a water dragon, complete with red eyes, before being brutally slammed into the ground by it. She immediately stood, before charging fast enough that Madara couldn't block, and with a Kyuubi-infused punch, broke his mask. As the pieces fell away, Kasumi was visibly shocked to see Naruto standing there, his face bleeding as he took the hit. Before any words could be said, he was hit by severe arrows in his back, making him cough up blood. He fell and the blonde girl caught him, cradling his head as she looked up, only to see Gato and an army of thugs with him. Naruto, for his part, was coughing blood out of his lungs as the blonde cried as she cradled his head. She spoke softly, confusion and worry in her eyes. Why did you me? He chuckled, wincing as he began to get weaker. Because we were enemies. But now I guess we're not. Huh. Kasumi was weeping as he closed his eyes, allowing unconsciousness to take him. The girl stood and glared daggers at Gato, who was laughing. She felt the Kyuubi's check out, and using it, charged forward. She had no idea what happened after that. Later, Tazuna's house. Naruto awoke with a gasp, his chest bandaged expertly by Karen. The last thing he remembered was Kasumi crying as she held him, and the distant words of Gato, then no. The door opened and Jugo walked in. He smiled at his teammate and friend as he said, "Naruto, my friend, you gave us quite the scare back there. What happened?" "Well, Zabuza died and Haku is currently asleep. At the bridge, Gato betrayed us, and your girlfriend brutally slaughtered him and his merry band of buttfuckers." "Seriously. No, I get sadistic, but she was way more so than me." Kasumi. "Shit. Kasumi. Where is she? Is she okay? Calm down," Jugo said in a placating manner. "She's fine. She's been worried about you, you know. She asked a lot about, and we told her the non-confidential stuff. Now on, we've got shit to do, and no time to do it." After getting dressed in his shinobi uniform, Naruto followed Jugo through Tazuna's house to the living room where everyone was. After he walked in, Tobi waved and showed him a message. "Naruto-kun. Guess what? We get to go to Konoha for the Chunin exams. Orders from the Amekage himself." Naruto gave a small smile as he nodded, before Kasumi looked at him. She seemed to want to speak with him urgently. "Naruto-kun, can we talk somewhere private?" He nodded and the two of them walked back upstairs to his room. After securing it, Kasumi lunged at him and buried her face in his chest, crying. He held her as she did, to be her support. After a moment, she looked up. "Naruto-kun, what is this feeling in my chest? It feels warm when you're near. It hurts when you're gone. Is it? Can I love you, even after such a short time?" Naruto brushed her cheek with his gloved hand, gently caressing her face. "Kasumi, you've lived a hard life. And while we have only known each other for a short time, I love you," she cried as she hugged him harder. He held her as they sat there, both content to be in each other's presence. Naruto almost sweat dropped as he thought of his mother's reaction to the news of his new girlfriend. 1 week later. The bridge was done soon after the Battle of the Bridge, even though it was a pretty short battle. For the most part, Team Zero didn't really fight, except for Naruto, as Tobia. Them was to play as support, mainly. Zabuza had been buried, with Haku now carrying his sword, all the while glaring at the Konoha shinobi in hatred for killing him. Tobi offered her a place in AIM, and the GI accepted, but was going to follow them to Konoha to await the Amekage instead of traveling the 2 weeks it took to get to AIM. Kasumi was never happier, which was noticeable to everyone, and Kushina didn't like it one bit. The redhead had done everything she could, aside from beating her, to life miserable, but Naruto always helped or was around to talk with her, so it didn't do much good. Kushina was currently glaring holes at her daughter, trying to get her to burst into flames. She and Minato had a strained relationship because the elder blonde found his daughter to be more attractive than his wife, which infuriated her. She was the most beautiful woman in Konoha, going out of her way to ensure beauties like Kurenai Yuhi. Mitarashi, Hana Inuzuka, and Yugao Azuki were regarded as common housewives by wearing enticing clothing and large amounts of makeup. But it never worked with Kasu, whom Minato bought increasingly inappropriate clothing for, and Kushina had made a plan to capture herself a new beau. She was going to get Minato drunk enough to convince him to have his way with his daughter, then when Naruto found out about her impurity, Kushina would swoop in and snatch him up. But for now, they were at the end of the bridge, going to Fire Country, and towards Konoha. The people of Wave were there, sending them off. As they took a step, they heard a small pair of feet run up to them, Naruto to be specific, and turned. There, standing with several fur pelts, was a little girl, holding out a towards him. By her side was another knife, this one much better for skinning and hunting. Naruto took the knife and smiled at the girl, ruffling her hair as he did, before they started to walk away. Rock Lee, who had gotten to know the unknown Uchiha better, asked, "What was that about, Naruto-san?" Naruto looked to the sky, smiling to himself. "Nothing. It's just. The baby bird can now fly and feed for itself. As it should be." Satsuki Uchiha was a beautiful girl for her age, or so she had been told by many of the perverted assholes in Konoha, and she knew it. She prided herself on being a kunoi, and was not above using her looks to get what she wanted, but was careful to not use it often. She looked a lot like her mother did when she was younger, having mid-back length black hair that had a slight blue tinge to it. She had a heart-shaped face and full lips, as a generous figure with C-cup breasts. She wore a traditional Uchiha clan shirt that was dark blue, with the Uchiha fan on the back, as well as long sleeves. She had a pair of short shorts that ended mid-thigh, white tights contrasting the usual dark look. A pair of black shinobi sandals finished off the look. All in all, she looked good, and she knew it. But every time she looked at Kasumi speaking with that boy, Naruto, she noticed that he barely paid the Uchiha heiress any attention. It made her slightly jealous that her friend was able to get such a hot boy to be her boyfriend, and it made her slightly competitive. But she was happy that her friend smiled more true smiles now. Point of view switch. Naruto was walking as he thought over the message he had been given via messenger hawk one night from his mother in the Amekage. From the information he had been given, it sounded like Orochimaru was planning an invasion of Konoha to either weaken or destroy the vile place. Not that Naruto could blame the Snake Man. From what had told him, and from what he had heard from the contacts he had in the village, it had become arrogant, filled with people who were ignorant of the true proceedings of world. They were intentionally weakening Sunagaku for some reason, taking the mission sent there like a fat kid at a buffet. They had made several alliances with minor villages, only to use loopholes to claim the shinobi and jutsu of those villages, eradicating them. But the worst was their tireless attempts at acquiring the secrets of the On village that they had never been able to find any source of information on, Amegakure. The Hidden Rain village was always in a state of constant lockdown, with every person being screened every week by a team of specialized shinobi to look for spies and even enter the village. You had to get by the massive iron walls that were made of a special ingredient that repelled chakra. Not absorbed, but repelled. As in, they were impossible to walk up, or damage with jutsu. And due to the constant rain, the Amekage made a special jutsu that the barrier team monitored 24/7, that instantaneously informed them of the location and whereabout anyone who entered the village without consent. Konoha had tried many times over the years to get inside and gather information, and all of them had failed. Naruto and his team had all decided to be on their best behavior, not attract attention, and keep any secrets they may have. Just that. He had overheard Kushina and Kakashi speaking in a whispered tone about them, and their so he was on alert for signs of any attempts at information gathering. It hadn't taken them very long to get to the Treehugger village, as they had no civilian to walk and protect, so when the gates of the village appeared, Naruto gazed at it apathetically, as did his teammates and sensei, who was acting excitedly about being in the damn village, while most of the Konoha group were happy to see their village. Kasumi gazed at the village and immediately retreated into her inner shell, not speaking as they showed their papers to the guards and made their way through the place. Had tormented her for all of her life. Jiraiya and Tsunade cared for her a lot, though, and she cared for them too. The reason they hadn't done anything about her abuse was because she had never told them. Now, you may be wondering why she was scared, and for good reason her father was incredibly powerful, the most powerful shinobi on record in the elemental nations. It would be child's play for him to beat down the two Sannin. And the two of them would do everything in their power to make it stop, even if it meant attacking Minato. A reassuring hand on her shoulder caught her attention, as Naruto looked at her through the holes of his mask. She smiled, steeling herself as they made their way through village to the Hokage Tower. When they reached it and went inside, they climbed the staircase to the office, while Naruto was having a moment of insanity. When they entered, they saw Minato Namikaze sitting behind his desk, wearing the normal Jonin uniform, plus a white cloak that had orange flames licking the bottom with kanji for fourth on the back. His blue eyes flickered at the strangers from AIM, and he asked for a report. After being given one, and Kushina telling him through code of Kasumi's new boyfriend, he dismissed them all except his wife. When everyone was gone, the redhead Bega, Minato-kun, that boy with the mask helmet is powerful. It seems he was hiding his strength back in Wave. And he caught our daughters. Minato glared at Kushina for saying that. Kasumi was his daughter, and he would be damned if some low-life punk from another village came along and took her away from he had always wanted the best for himself, always strived to be the best at everything and have the best of anything. But when Kasumi was born, and he watched her grow, he noticed that he didn't have the best. Kushina was a whore who slept around behind his back, and yet had the gall to act as if she didn't. But, when he started to drink, repressed hate and anger came out of him. So what if he had raped his wife? Did it matter? He was the Hokage, the most powerful shinobi since Hashirama Senju and Madoka Uchiha. But, around 3 years ago, noticed his daughter had begun to bloom into a young woman. And bloom she did. She had surpassed her mother in terms of beauty, and Minato saw this. It was only a matter of time before he got what he wanted from the girl, and he would be damned if that AIM genin got there first. So he replied in the typical fashion. Shut up, whore. We have nothing to worry about. By the time of the final round of the Chunin exam, she will become mine, and that genin will either be dead. Here Minato smirked evilly. Or I will kill him myself. He stood up and circled his desk before he backhanded Kushina to the floor. Unzipping his pants, he grabbed her throat before ripping her pants off. Positioning his baby her pussy, he spoke in a dark voice. Now, whore, let me hear you scream. But Kushina wasn't in the mood, lashing out and kicking him in his small junk. She glared coldly at him as she cradled her bruised cheek before snarling. No, no more. With as much pride as she could, she marched out of the office, leaving the blonde man to piss blood. With Naruto and Kasumi, the genin of AIM was being shown around Konoha when they heard a young voice call for help from a nearby alleyway. Intrigued, the duo turned the corner and caught a brown-haired boy being held by a makeup-wearing transvestite. Still being affected by his moment of insanity, Naruto made a small comment that had a very interesting reaction. Why is a penny hooker attacking a munchkin? Kasumi gaped at him for a moment, before falling in laughter. A blonde girl with 4 pigtails who had just arrived laughed as well, before recognizing the mask. Letting OU shriek, she tackled him, making Kasumi stop laughing and glare daggers at her. Naruto-kun. It's been so long. Naruto had swirls in his eyes as he laid there. No Ka-chan, I don't wanna eat my veggies. After a moment, he stood up and dusted himself off. Kasumi-chan, this is Tamari-chan. Tamari-chan, this is Kasumi-chan. Please be friends. A dry voice carried over on the winds after that. Naruto, my friend, you cannot ask a girl to be friends with another girl just like that. It is in their nature to be competitive. Each other. A boy with red hair wearing a gourd, having the kanji for love on his forehead, appeared in a swirl of sand. His name was Sabaku no Gara, the Ikibi Jinchuriki. He and N met one day, years ago, when Naruto went with his mother to Suna for a vacation under a false name. There, Naruto managed to befriend Gara, and ever since the two been close. Damn it, Gara. If they become friends, it means I'm one step closer to the 3-way I've been dreaming of ever since I was 11. Kasumi blushed at the thought of a way while Tamari looked at Kasumi before winking seductively. Whispering in his ear, Temari said. Would you like that, Naruto-kun? Kasumi and I, all oiled up, on top of your bed, holding the other close, all the while you giving us you. She stopped when Naruto's mask flew off via nosebleed, and he passed out with a massive grin on his face. Kasumi growled at the blonde Suna native as she pointed anger. Her. What did you do to Naruto-kun? Temari dropped the unconscious teen and rounded on her fellow blonde. Me. I didn't do anything. What were you doing with him? They proceeded to argue until Naruto woke up, a massive headache setting in as he did. Looking around, he saw the two girls almost ready to rip each other clothes off. He whistled loudly, garnering the attention of everyone around him. Can someone please tell me why the fuck I have such a killer headache? Both girls, their fight forgotten, appeared by his side in an instant. Both looked him over and were giving him their attention, much to Gaara and Kankuro's amusement. Nah, scowled at them as they did, and he stood despite the two girls telling him to sit down. Girls, I'm fine. And Kasumi, just to inform you, Temari is a friend of mine from Sun. Met her there a few years back, and we've kept in contact ever since. The blonde Namikaze was satisfied for the moment as she gave a nod, watching as Naruto looked at a nearby alleyway, before he spoke again. I'll catch you guys later. Something to do. Soon after, he disappeared in a swirl of water. The two females in the area glared at each other as lightning collided between them, marking their rivalry for the unknown Uchiha's heart. With Naruto looking around, the black and white-haired Uchiha looked around before sighing sadly, kind of upset that the person he thought he saw wasn't there. He glared at the roof, was on and turned away, but before he could jump off, a soft, elegant voice broke the silence. Now Naruto-kun. Is that any way to leave your mother? The voice said softly, making Naruto spin around and take in the sight of his mother, who hadn't aged a day. Madoka had creamy, pale skin that was flawless, giving her an ethereal beauty that was unmatched by anyone. Her long raven hair, still spiky, fell down to her perfectly square end. Her DD-cup chest was covered by her red armor, which covered her chest and stomach, and continued all the way to her shoulders before stopping. Instead of she wore a long skirt that was loose, stopping at her lower thighs. She wore a pair of sandals not unlike the first and second Hokages. At her waist was her katana, which jet black in every way. Seeing the happy look on her son's face, she was rather off-put when he kneeled in front of her. Ka-sama, has been a long time. You're looking as radiant and youth always. The eldest Uchiha gazed softly at her pride and joy, sad to see him act so cordial to her. Despite having raised him and trained him, she knew that he felt that he was distant to her since she had left him many times in his younger days. And while Madoka was a genius when it came to battles, politics, and nearly everything else, she was not, as Shish said all those years ago, the best mother in the world. She had made many mistakes when raising him, and now because of the incident of when he got his facial scar, he was forever scared of her wrath and anger. So instead of just letting him sit on his knees, she got down on hers and pulled him to her chest, stroking his hair as she hugged him. At first, he was stiff, as if scared she going to do something, but after a moment, he tentatively returned the hug. Now, Naruto may not be scared to face off against any foe, and was truly a gifted shinobi capable of fending off several A-class shinobi, and 1 or 2 S-class, but his terrified him. The sheer power she let off was absolutely terrifying to him. Then there was that incident a few years ago. Flashback. A 9-year-old Naruto was training with his mother, fighting her to the best of his abilities, but it was clear to him that he was no match. Ever since they had come out of T-Island that had been altered via the time seals, he had trained hard to be a strong shinobi. After a few more minutes, they decided to rest and sat down, drinking the water they had brought with them. It was then that the young child's mind went to one of the sensitive topics between the two of the unknown Uchiha, his father. Ka-chan, what was my 2-san like? The young, still purely black-haired, child asked. His mother tensed at the question she had been dreading for years now, and she quickly spoke. Your father was a strong man, very strong. He was one of the few people had ever gained my respect. Did you two love each other? That was a difficult question for Madoka. She had respected Tobirama, nothing more, nothing less. And being the woman she was, she went with honesty. No. We just spent night together, and 9 months later, you came out. Nodding, Naruto looked at the nearby ocean for a bit, before asking. Can you tell me who he was? Sorry Naruto-kun, not till you're older. Please. No. Please. No. Now drop it. Please. No. Madoka snapped at him. Now drop the matter and be silent. Naruto was silent for a moment, but his childlike curiosity got the better of him. Please Ka-chan. I really wanna. He was immediately cut off as Madoka, seeing red and losing her patience with her child, lost all sense of mind, and in a flash of light, drew her sword. After a brief moment, blood burst from Naruto's face as an X was formed over his right eye. He gasped and staggered back, falling on his butt as he did. Never had he seen his mother so angry before. Sure she yelled at him for slacking off, sure she yelled when he something bad, but never had he seen such unbridled fury in her eyes. It had to be a trick. His mother was kind, polite, and sweet. She would never hurt him like this. Never. It had to be an imposter, a monster stealing her face and posing as. Tears welled up in his eyes as he scooted away from her, threatening to fall as he managed to stand back up. Madoka was looking at him with wide eyes as her hand shook from the shock of what she had done. She saw Naruto looking at her with fear and confusion in his deep red. Even as he backed away, she took a step forward. Naruto-kun, but Naruto didn't hear her. He had turned and ran away, running into the forests of Water Country, his tears now falling as he did. Blood seeped down into his tears, making it seem he was crying blood, making a trail as he ran back to the house that they were staying at with the 3 AIM orphans for the time being. He made it to the simple wooden house, ripping the door open, he ran upstairs, ignoring the shouts of concern from the 3 shinobi as he ran into the bathroom. He looked at the mirror for a single moment, before grabbing the stool reserved for him and standing on it, peering at his reflection staring back at him. Wiping the blood off with a towel, forever staining it with his blood, he saw the X-shaped scar sitting atop his right eye, going down his right cheek. Even more tears fell as back away, now even more scared of his reflection. He heard knocking on the door, his 9-year-old mind racing, he jumped into the bathtub, pulling the curtains closed laying there in the fetal position, he sobbed as he kept seeing the rage-filled face of his mother as she brought the katana down. With Madoka earlier, the oldest Uchiha watched in numb shock as he precious baby ran away with a terrified face, too shocked to try and stop him. Why had she done that? Why had she draw sword, and to her own son at that? Sure, she had been annoyed that he kept asking, and yes she had been angry, very much so, but that, she had never lost her temper. That before, never. Yes, she didn't want her son to know of his father for a while, maybe when he turned 10, but to fly off the handle like that was unheard of. Madoka had not loved Tobirama. From what Naruto had read and seen from Konan and Yahiko by spending time with them, people only had babies when they loved each other. And deep down, she was as of what she had done to Tobirama. She had denied him the chance of meeting his, potentially only, son. Snapping out of it, Madoka ran, following the trail of blood left behind, all the way back to the home she and her companions were staying in for the time being. She opened door and followed the trail upstairs, before stopping when she saw the 3 AIM orphans standing in front of the bathroom door, knocking. Nagato was the first to notice. Madoka-sama, what has happened to Naruto-kun? She was at a loss for words as she stumbled for a moment. I need to speak with him. She strode to the door and used her abilities to fade through. Once on the other side, she carefully made her way to the bathtub. Kneeling down, she gently rubbed her so. As he wept. I'm so sorry, Sochi-kun. Naruto just cried as he mumbled out. It's okay. Ka-sama. End flashback. Things had been strained, to say the least between them, but it had been repaired for the most part, and Naruto was more comfortable in her presence now, but the fear, primal terror he had of her, was forever burned into his mind. She held him, softly humming as she did, and said, I've been getting reports from Obito-kun all about Wave, and I must say, Sochi-kun, you are an interesting young ma. Naruto was content in his mother's arms, letting her run her fingers through his hair as they sat there. But the mentioning of Wave made him remember all the things that happened there. Ka-chan, what am I gonna do? Tamari and Kasumi both are interested in me, and I have no idea what to do. Madoka, inwardly cheering at being called Ka-chan again, said in a teasing voice. So you're telling me that the son of Madoka Uchiha, the most powerful shinobi alive, ca handle two girls at the same time? The younger Uchiha blinked as he registered his own mother's words. You mean, start a harem? Seriously, I can. Only if they're interested in you, Naruto-kun. Please, who could resist me? Madoka rolled her eyes before flicking his forehead, eliciting an ow from him as she did. Alright, well, who is interested in you? Naruto thought of some before shrugging. Honestly, I have no idea who is interested in a romantic relationship with me. Across the village of Konoha, several females sneezed suddenly. Kasumi sneezed as she was speaking with Lee and Satsuki, who sneezed as well, about the upcoming test in the next week. Tamari sneezed, before grinning and wondering if Naruto was thinking of her. A black-haired Sound Kunoichi sneezed, before glaring at her teammate, her thoughts shifting to a familiar black and white-haired boy. A busty blonde sneezed lightly, before she looked coldly at her sensei before he rapped something stupid about how cold she was, before rubbing her shoulders, wishing th. Familiar dark red-eyed teen was doing it for her. In sound, a red-headed girl sneezed before violently promising to kick the ass of the person responsible, unless it was the hunk that had wormed his way into her heart-on. Last sojourn into sound. Well then, care to get some ramen and tell your mother all about the mission? Like she needed to ask. 1 week later, Chunin exam building. Kasumi and her team, which was composed of Satsuki and Sakura for the exam, looked with determination at the building, ready to take the next step and become a chun inside. Naruto was gazing at a silver-haired friend of his named Kabuto as the informant gave him information on the sound and sand invasion. Kabuto Yakushi was a great spy, as he was dedicated to completing his task, yet also flexible enough to change identities instantly. He was a loyal servant to Orochimaru. In fact, he was really just compiling data and information on the actions and experiments that the Snake Sanin did, while also helping in the development of the Omegaku Medical Shinobi Corp, what with him being a medic capable of rivaling Tsunade herself. As for the silver-haired man, he was truly loyal to Naruto, as the young teen had shown him kindness, offering friendship and support rather than using him as an expenda tool like Orochimaru did. Kabuto smirked as he looked at his commander. Do you want me to give anyone who asks any information about you or your team? Yes, but ensure that it stays fairly truthful. I don't want everyone to know exactly what I am capable of. Got, friend. Turning himself so he could see the left-hand wall, Naruto noticed a window. Looking out the window, Naruto smirked as he looked at a nearby crow, a summons from Itachi signaling the successful infiltration of the exams. Oh yeah, this year's Chunin exams were gonna be fun on a bun.